Brad had never been the type to dwell on chance encounters, yet one particular moment in his past seemed to stick with him more than he expected. In his first year of college, an unexpected delay in registration forced him into an elective class he never intended to take: art appreciation. Surrounded by students with brightly colored hair, heavy paint stains on their clothes, and an enthusiasm for abstract thought that bewildered him, he was entirely out of place. Despite his disinterest, he made a few acquaintances in that course, one of whom was a quiet yet sharp-witted girl named Kathleen Kinnison. She was a fixture in the art department, known for her brutally honest critiques and her uncanny ability to capture raw emotion on canvas. Kathleen often spoke of her closest friend, a girl named Ramona, who, as she described, had the soul of an artist, but the confidence of a shadow. At the time, Brad had no reason to remember that name. A year later, Brad's routine college life took another unexpected turn when his roommate invited him to a casual gathering at an offbeat cafe just off campus. The dim lighting, vintage furniture, and overpowering scent of clove cigarettes made it obvious this was a space for the alternative crowd, certainly not his usual scene. He sat quietly, listening to conversations about the meaning of colors and the philosophy of broken rules. Across the room, a girl with thick glasses, mismatched patterns, and a restless energy scribbled into a sketchbook, unaware of anything else around her. That was the first time Brad saw Ramona. Brad's introduction to Ramona took place during his university days. Back then, she was a short, full-figured girl with oversized glasses and a complexion troubled by blemishes. Pursuing a degree in art, she expressed herself through a wardrobe that defied convention, her unique taste unmistakable. However, while her originality set her apart, it wasn't the kind of charm that drew most men in, Brad included. Focused on his studies in production technology, his academic interests couldn't have been more different from hers. Nevertheless, due to a shared requirement in their programs, they ended up in the same computer graphics course. She needed it for her art major, and he had to take it as a prerequisite for AutoKD. Circumstances led them to work together on a group assignment. Although they had previously shared classrooms, their interactions had been minimal. From the start, it was apparent they were complete opposites. Brad, a track runner and someone who hovered on the outskirts of the popular social scene, had little in common with Ramona, who immersed herself in cigarettes, coffee, and the company of unconventional thinkers, the poets, the painters, the dreamers. While his dating life consisted of cheerleaders and fellow athletes, Ramona was often overlooked, regarded as a companion rather than a romantic interest among the more traditionally attractive and socially confident members of her circle. The group project necessitated prolonged collaboration, forcing them to spend more time together. Inevitably, they began to notice each other in new ways. One evening, their conversation veered away from academic topics, growing more personal. Just as they seemed to be getting comfortable, Brad's girlfriend arrived to pick him up. As he left, he felt an unexpected sadness about parting from Ramona, and her discontent was equally apparent. The next day, Ramona seemed distant in class. "What did I do now?" Brad asked, confused. "You're such an idiot," she snapped, her voice trembling. Not wanting to escalate things publicly, Brad gently led her outside to a park bench across the street. After asking her to wait, he returned with her favorite juice and a soda for himself, hoping to break the tension. "So why am I an idiot?" he asked with a smile. "Because you just are," she mumbled, wiping away tears. Brad sighed. "That's not much of an explanation." Ramona's voice wavered with bitterness. "I thought you were different, but you're just like all the others. You don't want someone who truly cares for you. All you guys want is some brainless, big-chested girl." Brad paused before responding calmly. "Well, those girls do one thing right." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that?" "They make their feelings known," he said simply. Ramona clenched her fists in frustration, her anger palpable. Brad, wanting to diffuse the moment, took off her oversized glasses and kissed her, deeply and passionately. Unbeknownst to him at the time, it was her first real kiss. She pulled back, stunned. "What the hell was that?" He grinned. Communication. One kiss led to another, and they spent that evening sharing an intimate connection on the park bench. Over the following weeks, they completed their project, earning an A, and began dating. Ramona underwent changes. She switched to contact lenses, sought help from a dermatologist, and adopted a more mainstream wardrobe. While Brad never requested these changes, her newfound confidence was evident. She frequently sought his input while shopping, and he offered suggestions that highlighted her figure. You just like staring at my chest, she teased. Of course, he quipped with a grin, but they're mine, and you're wearing them for me. Their relationship grew deeper on all levels. As her first boyfriend, Brad made their closeness meaningful. Ramona gradually became more comfortable in their relationship, and her initial insecurities faded under Brad's reassurances of her beauty and his love. A few weeks into their relationship, she sighed while looking at herself in a mirror. I look like the kind of woman I used to hate. Brad hugged her from behind, smirking. Maybe so, but you're my woman. This seemed to comfort her, and their bond continued to strengthen. After college, they got engaged. Brad secured a position at an automotive design firm, while Ramona began working as a layout designer for an art magazine. Brad's family embraced Ramona warmly, but her own family was less accepting. At their engagement party, her sister remarked, Brad's nice enough, I guess, but he probably stifles her creativity. Her mother added, They're only marrying because she's pregnant. It won't last. Despite the skepticism, Brad and Ramona built a happy life together. At their 7th anniversary party, her mother couldn't resist asking, When will I become a grandmother? Ramona quickly replied, We're trying, Mom. The couple struggled with infertility for years. Eventually, Maddie, Ramona's mother, took matters into her own hands, scheduling them for appointments at a fertility clinic. Brad's tests came back normal, prompting Maddie to suggest they practice more. Ramona's results, however, revealed significant reproductive challenges that made pregnancy unlikely. That night, Brad held Ramona as she cried. We can always adopt, he whispered. There are options. Through her tears, she said, If you want a divorce, I'll understand. He tightened his embrace. Mona, I will never leave you unless you make me. My mom thinks you'll cheat to have kids, she muttered. Brad looked into her eyes. I will never betray you. You're my everything. She sobbed. Why would you stay with someone like me? Gently, he cupped her face. Because I love you more than anything, and I can't imagine life without you. Eventually, she fell asleep in his arms, comforted by his unwavering devotion. Together, they faced whatever challenges came their way, united by their love and resilience. Those days blurred into one another in Brad's mind. The specific details faded with time, but the emotions remained sharp and unrelenting. Yet one memory stood out distinctly. 2 days after their initial appointment, the clinic called them back for further consultation. Sitting across from the doctor, they grew uneasy when she mentioned that Ramona's test results had been sent to a specialist for additional analysis. Then came the devastating news. Ramona was diagnosed with an early but aggressive form of cancer. Suddenly, everything began to make sense. Her constant fatigue, the unrelenting aches in her body, and the mood swings she had been experiencing. The realization left Brad overwhelmed with fear. Fortunately, the cancer was detected early, and her prognosis was optimistic. The doctor referred them to a specialized oncology center, scheduling an appointment for the very next day. Ramona underwent a grueling series of invasive tests. Brad took a leave of absence from work to stay by her side, holding her hand through every procedure, offering constant reassurance, and anxiously waiting for each result. In the weeks that followed, she underwent surgery to remove the affected lymph nodes and began radiation therapy. Determined to support her through every step, Brad stayed in the family suite at the cancer center, ensuring he was with her every morning when she woke up and every night as she drifted to sleep. Although her mother and sister occasionally visited, their demeanor toward Brad remained cold and distant. It was as if they held him accountable, blaming him for circumstances beyond anyone's control. The radiation treatments proved ineffective, damaging healthy tissue as well as cancerous cells. The doctors made the decision to transition her to chemotherapy. By that point, Ramona had lost 40 pounds due to the effects of radiation, and chemotherapy promised even harsher side effects, including the loss of her hair. Throughout the ordeal, the hospital staff proved to be a source of comfort, especially the nurses. Among them, one nurse stood out, Kelly. She was tall and striking, with vibrant red hair and piercing green eyes. Kelly greeted Brad with warmth each morning, often lightening his burden with a joke or a kind word. Her presence became a bright spot during an otherwise dark time. Kelly's support extended beyond professional duty. She worked night shifts, meaning she was often present when Brad left the hospital at night and when he returned early the next morning. Her cheerful demeanor never faltered in his presence, but her compassion was matched by an unyielding sense of justice. One day, Kelly confronted Ramona's mother after Maddie made a snide comment, suggesting Brad would abandon Ramona now that she was ill. Kelly's response was swift and fiery. "This place is emotionally draining," Kelly snapped. "Most of our patients rarely see visitors because their loved ones can't handle the sight of them like this. Or worse, they think cancer is contagious." She stepped closer to Maddie. "But this man, he hasn't left her side. He's here when she's sick, holding the bucket when she vomits and cleaning her up afterward. Were you around for that?" Maddie opened her mouth to reply, but Kelly cut her off. "He helps her to the bathroom, ensuring she keeps her dignity. Did you help with that? He shaved his own head when she started losing her hair so she wouldn't feel alone. Were you here for that?" Kelly's voice softened, almost mocking. "By the way, his shiny head looks great. Not many men could pull that off." Her tone hardened once more. "He gives her sponge baths so she doesn't have to endure the indignity of a stranger doing it. And when her insurance wouldn't cover treatment, he went into debt for your daughter. He's been here every single day, loving her through all of it. Were you?" Kelly folded her arms, her expression unyielding. "Think very carefully about the next words you say about this man, because they'll determine whether you're welcome back on this floor." Brad wasn't present for the confrontation, but the story spread among the nurses who later shared it with him. When he heard about it, he smiled faintly, grateful for Kelly's fierce defense. More importantly, the incident seemed to change Maddie's attitude. She softened toward Brad, even going so far as to pat him on the shoulder during one of her visits. Chemotherapy was brutal on Ramona, leaving her physically depleted but, eventually, cancer-free. As her health improved, Brad helped her adopt a new diet to rebuild her strength. She underwent several reconstructive surgeries to remove excess skin caused by her dramatic weight loss. Emerging from her battle with cancer, Ramona looked and felt like a different person. She had shed 80 pounds, her skin had cleared, and her hair began to grow back. She traded her glasses for contact lenses, and her self-assurance blossomed. Old acquaintances often didn't recognize her at first glance. Though she wasn't a classic beauty like Kelly, Ramona had become her best self. But to Brad, she had always been, and would always remain, his greatest love. As Ramona recovered, Brad returned to work, taking on extra hours to manage the crushing medical debt they had accumulated. Ramona, however, needed more time before she could resume her career. Their physical relationship, already strong before her illness, reached new heights. It was as if Ramona sought to express her gratitude and love for Brad in the most intimate way possible, rekindling their bond with a renewed intensity born from their shared trials. Together, they emerged stronger, ready to face whatever life had in store. Ramona started spending more time with her old colleagues, filling the hours while Brad worked long shifts. He was glad to see her socializing. Before, she had never been particularly outgoing, and after everything she had endured, she deserved to enjoy herself. At first, he assumed it was just her way of reclaiming her life after cancer, a natural step in moving forward. He didn't question it. He didn't realize his marriage was unraveling. As the weeks passed, Ramona began coming home later, often stumbling through the door, tipsy or outright drunk. "This is the most fun I've ever had," she laughed one night, her words slurred. Brad felt a pang of resentment. While he was grinding through 12 to 16-hour shifts to pay off her medical bills, she was out partying without him. Her wardrobe also changed. She started dressing more provocatively, choosing outfits that left little to the imagination. When Brad asked about it, she brushed him off. "I've never had a body like this before," she said. "I just want to show it off. It's exciting." He nodded, but couldn't shake the gnawing discomfort in his gut. "Since when do you need to show it off to anyone other than me?" he asked. She rolled her eyes. "Don't be that guy, Brad. It's harmless fun." That week, Brad found himself reflecting on their marriage more than usual. Something felt off, but he didn't want to confront it. He loved Ramona. She was his world. After everything they had faced together, her illness, the fear, the sleepless nights, he thought they were stronger than ever. Meanwhile, his relentless dedication at work had not gone unnoticed. The company rewarded his efforts with a promotion, a significant raise, and a hefty bonus. He decided to use it to plan a much-needed getaway, a chance to rekindle their bond. To make it special, he arranged a surprise party for her upcoming birthday, where he would reveal the trip. He was convinced that spending time alone together would bring them back to where they once were. But before he could set his plan in motion, everything fell apart. Ramona had a routine follow-up at the hospital to ensure the cancer hadn't returned. After running some tests, The doctors told her they would call with the results. As she was leaving, she ran into Kelly. Ramona had never liked Kelly. Despite all the changes in her appearance, she still saw herself as the insecure girl from before. And standing next to someone like Kelly, who was effortlessly beautiful, only reinforced that feeling. "Hey, Ramona," Kelly greeted her warmly. "Strange seeing you without your devoted husband." Ramona frowned. "What's that supposed to mean? He's at work." Kelly chuckled softly. "I didn't mean anything by it. You're just lucky, you know? You have someone who loves you so much." Ramona crossed her arms. "Why are we talking about Brad?" Kelly shook her head. "Most men don't stick around when things get hard. If only someone looked at me the way he looks at you." Ramona cut her off. "Yeah, well, it doesn't matter." She wasn't in the mood to think about Brad. She had other plans. Knowing he'd be stuck at work for hours, she decided to return to the bar she had been at the night before. One drink wouldn't hurt. She could be home before he even noticed she was gone. As soon as she walked in, a voice called out, "Oh my God, Ramona, is that really you?" She turned to see Kathleen Kinnison, an old college friend. "What have you been up to?" Kathleen asked, eyes wide. "You've lost so much weight. I barely recognized you." Ramona laughed. "Hey, Kat, just having fun." "How's Brad?" Ramona shrugged. "Working." They grabbed a table, soon joined by a group of guys. Before long, one of them led Ramona to the dance floor. She let herself get lost in the rhythm, in the attention, in the moment. She didn't notice when the door swung open, but every guy in the bar did. Kelly had just walked in. Ramona was too wrapped up in the music to see her, too engrossed in the thrill of being admired. But Kelly saw everything, what she was doing and who she was doing it with. She didn't say a word. She ordered a sandwich from the grill and walked out. Back at the hospital, an idea began to take shape in her mind. Meanwhile, Brad remained blissfully unaware of what was happening. He worked tirelessly, putting the final touches on Ramona's surprise party, hoping it would bring them closer again. He invited her mother, sister, and a handful of close friends, carefully selecting gifts to make the celebration perfect. Surprisingly, Maddie offered to help decorate. Though she had once been distant, she had grown to respect Brad after seeing the depth of his devotion to Ramona. While she may not have loved him, she had at least accepted him. In the days leading up to the party, Brad noticed a disturbing trend. Every time he came home, Ramona was heading out. She rarely waited for him anymore, and when she did return, it was often in the early hours of the morning, sometimes drunk. Their physical connection, once a source of passion, had all but disappeared. He couldn't even remember the last time they had made love. Oddly, his co-workers seemed to sense his frustration. Some of the women at work flirted more openly, and while he ignored their advances, he couldn't deny the growing loneliness. Then, one evening, just as he walked through the front door, the phone rang. "Hey, Brad, it's Kelly," the familiar voice said. His stomach tensed. "Hey, Kelly, do you have Ramona's test results?" "Not yet," she replied, her tone unusually serious. "But I need to talk to you. It's important. Can we meet somewhere? It won't take long." Brad hesitated. Sure. How about the park across from the hospital?" There was a brief pause. "That works. I can be there in 20 minutes. "All right. See you there," Brad said before hanging up. The park had always been a place of refuge for Brad during Ramona's illness. He and Kelly had shared a few impromptu dinners there while he waited for her procedures to end. It was also the place where Kelly had first told him that the chemotherapy was working. Perhaps that's why she had chosen this spot. She didn't want to taint it with bad news. When Brad arrived, he spotted Kelly sitting on a small bench. He walked over and sat beside her, offering a weary but friendly smile. "Did I miss a payment?" he joked. "Or worse, Ramona isn't sick again, is she?" Kelly's expression turned somber. "She's sick, but not with cancer." A cold, uneasy feeling settled in Brad's stomach. Over the next few minutes, Kelly revealed everything, where she had seen Ramona, what she had been doing, and who she had been with. "I don't have any proof," she admitted. "No pictures, no recordings. But from what I saw, it's obvious she's being unfaithful." Brad let out a short, humorless laugh, more out of disbelief than anything else. "Kelly, you're a great nurse. And until now, I thought you were a great person too." He shook his head. "Ramona wouldn't do that to me. She loves me." The words felt empty even as he spoke them. Kelly sighed. "I wouldn't tell you this unless I was sure. I just hate seeing you go through this." Brad clenched his fists. "I don't believe it. All you have are suspicions," he continued. "No solid proof. Maybe it's best if you stay out of it." He stood to leave, but Kelly reached out and gently took his hand. Then she touched his cheek, her fingers warm against his skin. For some reason, he froze. The anger inside him melted away. "For your sake," she said softly. "I hope I'm wrong. It eliminates me to think of you sacrificing so much for someone who doesn't deserve you." Her fingers traced down his cheek, and for a brief second, he swore he felt something, a jolt of electricity. "If you ever need a friend, I'm here," she whispered, slipping a small card into his hand before walking away. Brad watched her leave, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. It had been so long since he and Ramona had truly connected, and yet, in that moment, he had felt something undeniable just watching Kelly disappear into the night. Meanwhile, Kelly felt a sense of satisfaction. She hadn't expected everything to fall apart for Ramona overnight, but Brad needed to see the truth, piece by piece, before it destroyed him all at once. She had no intention of hurting him, but he deserved to know what was really happening. She couldn't pinpoint exactly when she had fallen for him. Maybe it was during those long nights at the hospital, watching him care for a woman who barely seemed to appreciate him. Or maybe it was later, when Ramona began treating him more like a personal assistant than a husband, a man who had given up everything for her. Kelly had always known she was attractive. Men had told her that her whole life. But no man had ever treated her the way Brad had treated Ramona, and she would have given anything to have a man like that love her. It was time for step 2. 2 nights later, Brad was buzzing with anticipation. The party wasn't just about Ramona's birthday. It was supposed to be a turning point, a fresh start for their marriage. Over the past few weeks, he had taken note of how distant she had become. She was drinking too much, staying out too late, barely speaking to him. The night before, he had fallen asleep waiting for her to come home. When he woke up, she was already in bed, passed out. That morning, as she stirred awake, he smiled. "I've planned something special for your birthday." She rolled over, her voice groggy. "That's sweet." Brad knew she had likely been out partying, but he tried to rationalize it. She had survived cancer. Maybe she was just trying to experience the things fat Ramona had never gotten the chance to. He just wished she wanted to experience them with him. At 6:30 p.m., Maddie and Ramona's sister Ravana arrived to help decorate the apartment. They moved quickly, expecting Ramona to walk in any minute. Brad had kept the guest list small, just 6 people, those closest to her. He wanted the night to be intimate, meaningful. By 9 p.m., guests were whispering among themselves. Ramona still hadn't shown up. A few left their gifts on the table and headed home. By 11 p.m., only Maddie, Ravana, and Brad remained. Frustration simmered inside him as he called Ramona's phone for the 4th time. Finally, at 11:30, she called back. "Hey, sweetheart," she slurred. "I'm on my way." Brad's grip on the phone tightened. "Where are you?" "Mom wanted to take me out for a drink," she said casually. "So I went with her instead of coming straight home." Brad clenched his jaw. "We had plans tonight, Ramona." I know, we just lost track of time," she replied, brushing him off. "I actually went with her and my snotty sister, because they still don't like you very much. I didn't want their attitudes to ruin whatever surprise you had planned for me." In the background, a man's voice cut through the noise. "Hurry up, baby. We're waiting." Brad's stomach dropped. Ramona giggled. "Anyway, I'll see you soon, and you can give me my surprise then." She hesitated. "Is it a big surprise?" Brad's voice was quiet. "Something like that." A heavy silence followed. Maddie turned to him, and in her eyes, he saw it. The understanding, the sympathy. She knew. She had heard everything. For a moment, Brad just sat there, unable to process what had just happened. His entire world had cracked open, and he didn't even know how to react. Maddie finally broke the silence. I didn't always think you were the right man for Ramona." Brad looked up at her, dazed. "But I was wrong," she admitted. "What a witch," Ravana muttered under her breath. Brad took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Thank you both for coming. I'll clean up this mess and put away the gifts." His voice was eerily calm. "I'm sure she'll be back soon. You're welcome to stay, but I don't think it's worth it." "Why not?" Ravana challenged, crossing her arms. "As her naughty sister, I'd love to see the look on her face when she walks in and gets caught in her damn lie." Brad shook his head. "She went through hell with cancer. None of us know what that was like for her. Maybe this is how she's coping." His voice was barely above a whisper. Maddie and Ravana exchanged glances before silently heading toward the door. Once they were gone, Brad walked to the bedroom closet and grabbed a suitcase. He packed quickly, just enough to make sure he wouldn't have to come back anytime soon. Before leaving, he scribbled a note and placed it on the kitchen table. Then, without a second thought, he walked out the door. The next morning at work, Brad sat at his desk, staring blankly at his computer screen. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he searched for a divorce attorney. He found several promising options, but he couldn't bring himself to make a call. His mind was a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, grief. He barely spoke to anyone. His coworkers probably assumed he was coming down with something, a bad cold or the flu. In reality, he felt worse than sick. He felt hollow. Meanwhile, Ramona called his phone repeatedly, leaving voicemail after voicemail. He ignored every single one. For 3 days, he stuck to the same routine: go to work, return to his motel, sleep, wake up, repeat. He functioned on autopilot, burying himself in work to avoid thinking about everything that had unraveled. On the third evening, as he stepped out of his office building, he spotted Kelly perched on the hood of his car. Her face was drawn, her eyes red as if she had been crying. As soon as she saw him, she slid off the car, marching toward him. "Why didn't you call me?" she demanded, her voice laced with concern. Brad didn't answer. He just stood there, looking at her. The emotional barricade he had built over the past few days finally collapsed. Tears welled in his eyes as he whispered, "Everything you told me was true." Before he could say anything else, Kelly wrapped her arms around him. He knew he should have pulled away. He should have resisted, but he didn't. And when her body pressed against his, a warmth spread through him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. And he hated himself for it. "I never wanted to hurt you," she murmured. "I just didn't want you to be blindsided." Ramona woke up with a splitting headache, her temples throbbing. She groaned, rubbing her forehead. "What day is it?" she muttered, squinting at the clock. The apartment was a disaster. Empty bottles, clothes scattered, dishes piled in the sink. "Brad's gonna have to clean this place up," she grumbled. Then she frowned. "Wait, where the hell is he?" A sudden knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Annoyed, she threw on a robe and stumbled toward it. Peeking through the peephole, she let out a sigh of relief. It was her mother. Opening the door, she forced a weak smile. "Hey, Mom, sorry about the mess. My husband seems to have a new habit of disappearing lately." Maddie stepped inside, her expression unreadable. She scanned Ramona from head to toe. "Where were you last night, and what were you doing?" Maddie's tone was sharp. Ramona blinked, confused. "What? What are you talking about?" Maddie crossed her arms. "Or, judging by the state you're in, who were you with?" Ramona rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Mom, not this again." "Then explain why you have hickeys on your neck." Ramona froze. Her hand flew to her throat, her fingers brushing against the sore marks. "Crap," she muttered. "Brad better not see this." She turned away. "Mom, make some coffee. My head is liquidating me." Maddie sighed, walking into the kitchen and switching on the coffee maker. As she waited, she spoke over her shoulder. "So, how did you manage to lie your way out of this one?" Ramona yawned. "Lie about what?" "The night of your birthday," Maddie said coolly. "When you told Brad you were with me and your sister, we were standing right next to him." Ramona's heart skipped a beat. Her eyes snapped open. She exhaled slowly, trying to think. "I'll figure something out before he gets home," she muttered. "You have to help me, Mom." Maddie turned to her, an unmistakable look of disgust on her face. "Why should I?" Ramona sighed. "Look, I know I've made mistakes, but it wasn't serious. I was just having fun. I never got to do this when I was younger." Maddie didn't respond. Ramona pressed on. "You remember what it was like, Mom? I was always the fat friend, the one guys ignored. Then I met Brad, and suddenly I felt like I mattered. I dressed better. I felt confident. For once, I was the girl someone actually wanted." Her voice softened. "But now that I've lost weight, men notice me. They flirt. They chase me. It's intoxicating. I can tease them, string them along, then discard them when I'm done. It's fun, Mom. It's nothing serious." She gave Maddie a pleading look. "I love Brad. I'd never actually leave him. He's safe, stable, but he's also boring. I need excitement too, and he'll never find out anyway. He's too busy working himself into the ground." Maddie let out a quiet sigh. "You really believe that?" She walked over to the table, picking up a folded piece of paper. "Because if you do," she said, handing it to Ramona, "you might want to read this." Ramona frowned, unfolding the note. "Ramona, I'm really happy you're having fun. After everything you've been through, you deserve to enjoy life. Beating cancer is rare, and you didn't just survive, you thrived. From the moment I met you, I knew you were special. I fell for you completely, and for years I thought we had something unbreakable. But I've come to realize something. I don't fit into your life anymore. I was yours from the beginning, but I see now that you've outgrown me. I hope you get this letter in time to call me so we can talk, if there's even anything left to talk about. If I don't hear from you, I'll take it as confirmation of what I already know. I'll be filing for divorce. The apartment is yours. I won't be coming back. There are too many memories here. I just hope whoever comes after me treats you the way I did. I gave you everything, Ramona, but in the end, I wasn't enough. Brad. As she finished reading, Ramona's legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. Maddie stood over her, shaking her head. What a fool I raised. Across town, Kelly pulled into her driveway with Brad in the passenger seat. She parked, then walked around the car to open his door. He barely reacted as she guided him inside, his movements sluggish, his expression distant. She led him to the couch, studying his face. He looked completely drained, physically, emotionally, mentally. He was running on empty. He doesn't even realize how strong he is, Kelly thought. But I'm going to help him get rid of that woman. She hadn't told him everything yet. A private investigator had been trailing Ramona for a week. Kelly knew exactly when Brad had left, exactly what Ramona had been up to, but she wasn't going to tell him tonight. He wasn't ready for that. Leaving him to rest on the couch, she changed into shorts and a t-shirt before heading to the kitchen. She cooked a simple dinner, steaks and salad. When she set the plate in front of him, he barely touched it, just pushing his fork around absent-mindedly. The silence stretched between them, thick and unbroken. After dinner, Kelly casually picked up Brad's phone and checked for any missed calls. Nothing. That was a good sign. It meant Ramona was still too intoxicated to realize he was gone. Without hesitation, she powered off the phone and set it aside before making a quick call to the hospital. I won't be in for a few days, she informed them, her tone leaving no room for argument. She turned to Brad. You should take some time off, too. He shook his head. I can't afford to. There are still bills to cover. Kelly wasn't letting him use work as an excuse to avoid dealing with everything. She handed him the phone. Call in. Now. Brad hesitated, staring at the device for a moment before finally relenting. He requested 2 days off, then tossed the phone aside without another thought. Later that evening, Kelly brought him a blanket and helped him get comfortable on the couch. Kneeling beside him, she traced her fingers lightly over his forehead before pressing a soft kiss there. If you need anything, I'm right upstairs, she said, before disappearing down the hall. That same night, Ramona's frustration grew with every unanswered call. Where the hell was he? She needed to talk to him, to explain. He wouldn't leave her, not for real. He was her stability, the one person who had always been there. Sure, she had made a few reckless choices lately, but none of it had meant anything. Just a little fun, that's all. Her marriage was what mattered. Brad had loved her when no one else had, back when she was invisible to everyone but him. He had seen her for who she really was, long before she ever lost the weight. They had faced the darkest days together, battling her illness as a team. Without him, she wouldn't have made it through. He had been the one holding her hand through the worst of it, shaving his head so she wouldn't feel alone. How could she have been so careless? She called again. Still no answer. Desperate, she dialed his office. He had to be there. He was always working. His boss answered. Brad's off for a few days. Her stomach tightened. Off? Where did he go? No idea, came the indifferent response. Oh, and by the way, he doesn't work in this department anymore. He got promoted a while ago. She froze. Brad had been promoted? Since when? For the first time, doubt crept in. Up until now, she had assumed he was just angry, sulking somewhere, waiting for her to call and set things right. All she had to do was get him home. They'd talk, she'd convince him, they'd sleep together, and things would go back to normal. They had been through too much for it to end like this. Sitting in the dim apartment, she replayed everything in her mind. Was what she had done really worth losing him? She had always thought she was too smart to make mistakes like this. How had she let herself become someone she used to mock? At first, it had just been about feeling alive again, experiencing the things she had never been able to before. But now she realized she had never actually been in control. The attention from other men had given her a false sense of power, but in the end, she had thrown away something that had only ever belonged to Brad. There was no real connection in what she had done, no love, just meaningless, drunken encounters. The only thing that mattered now was how much Brad knew, and what she would have to do to get him to forgive her. But deep down, she knew the truth. She couldn't even forgive herself. Meanwhile, Kelly took her time, ensuring Brad didn't completely break under the weight of it all. They returned to his motel to pick up his things, then she convinced him to buy a few essentials. Eventually, he agreed to move into the guest room at her house. Gradually, she got him to open up. At first, it was just small responses, but soon they were having real conversations. The only thing they didn't talk about was Ramona. 2 days later, Kelly handed Brad his phone. He turned it on and checked his messages. Over 100 missed calls from Ramona. Without hesitation, he deleted them all. Kelly noticed the way his expression hardened, the shift in his posture. He was starting to regain control. Back at work, Brad felt somewhat steady. He wasn't okay, far from it, but he was functioning. His coworkers had noticed Kelly dropping him off earlier that week, and the office gossip had already started. "So, Brad," his friend Dave grinned, "who was driving that red Mustang?" "Man's got a model looking out for him," another guy added, with a whistle. Brad smirked but didn't respond. Kelly was undeniably beautiful, more stunning than Ramona had ever been if he was being honest. But did he really believe that? His mood soured when someone threw out a joke about him cheating on his wife with the redhead. Nobody knew what had really happened. Nobody knew the truth about Ramona. They all just assumed he was fine. Just as he was about to head out for the day, a security guard stormed into his office. "You need to get outside, right now." Brad frowned. "What's going on?" "Just get out there, you'll see." As he stepped into the parking lot, he wasn't sure what to expect. A broken windshield? A slashed tire? What he found was worse. Ramona's voice cut through the air, her rage spilling out for everyone to hear. "You home-wrecking hooker, stay the hell away from my husband!" Standing next to his car, Kelly folded her arms. "You abandoned him. You don't get to claim him now." "What the hell are you even talking about?" Ramona spat. "You drowned yourself in booze and threw him away," Kelly shot back. Security had already stepped in to keep them apart, but a crowd had gathered, whispering as they watched the scene unfold. Brad pushed past the onlookers. Without acknowledging Ramona, he walked straight to Kelly, opened the car door, and motioned for her to get in. "Go home," he said calmly. "I'll be right behind you." She hesitated, searching his face, then nodded and slid into the car. Turning to security, Brad gestured toward Ramona. "Hold her here for 10 minutes." Ramona's eyes widened. "Brad, wait!" she cried, struggling against the guards. "We need to talk. We can fix this. You still love me. I know you do." The worst part? She was right, but Brad didn't turn back. He climbed into his car and drove off, his vision blurred with unshed tears. That evening, Brad sat on Kelly's couch, staring blankly at his hands, lost in thought. "What are you going to do now?" Kelly asked softly. He exhaled slowly. I need to understand what happened in my marriage." Kelly studied him carefully. "Are you sure that's what you really want?" "Of course," he said. She shook her head. "I don't think you do." Kelly stepped out of the room and returned moments later, holding a thick manila envelope. She placed it on the table between them, then took a step back as if creating distance from what was inside. "This has everything," she said softly. "But please, don't open it." Brad's brow furrowed as he glanced down at the envelope. "What exactly is in there?" She sighed. "When I first told you about her, you said I didn't have proof. And you were right. I knew what I saw, but I also knew how easy it was to lie to yourself, because I did the same thing when it happened to me." Taking a steadying breath, she continued. "I knew you wouldn't believe it without evidence, so I had someone look into it. A private investigator. He's my cousin, and he owed me a favor." Brad swallowed hard. "And what did he find?" Kelly nodded toward the envelope. "Photos, audio, video, reports, receipts, every ugly detail. But if there's even a shred of love left in your heart for her, I'm telling you, you don't want to see it." Brad's fists clenched. "You already know she broke your trust," Kelly added. "Seeing it for yourself won't change that. It'll only make it worse. If you open that folder, you won't be able to unsee what's inside." She exhaled. "You're starting to move forward, Brad. Looking at this will only pull you back." She turned toward the kitchen. "What do you want for dinner?" Brad reached forward, hesitated for a split second, then pulled out the first photograph. The image hit him like a gut punch. Ramona sprawled across a bar table, her dress bunched up around her hips. 3 men surrounding her. His chest constricted, breath catching in his throat. His mind blanked. He shoved the picture back into the envelope and hurled it across the room. His entire body trembled as he dropped into a chair, head in his hands. Kelly sat beside him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. Neither of them spoke for the rest of the night. By morning, neither had changed their minds. Both Brad and Kelly called into work, then headed to a lawyer's office. Sherry, Brad's attorney, skimmed through the paperwork. This shouldn't take long. No kids, few assets. The only real complication is the medical debt. I'll cover it, Brad said flatly. Sherry arched a brow. Why? I just will. You're drowning in debt because of her, Sherry reminded him. And how did she repay you? Well, let's not spell it out. Brad didn't respond. Sherry sighed. Fine. Either way, this will be an easy case. If she tries to fight it, we can use the evidence. Exposing what she did would ruin her reputation. Brad nodded. He wanted this over. But Ramona had no intention of making it easy. When she was served the divorce papers, she didn't just refuse to sign, she tore them to shreds. Not only did she refuse to get a lawyer, but she wouldn't even acknowledge the divorce itself. I'm not signing anything, she snapped. Instead, she proposed a legal separation and insisted on counseling. I just need time, she pleaded. Tell Brad to come home so we can fix this. Sherry didn't buy it. If you don't cooperate, we'll change the filing to infidelity. That won't look good for you. Ramona laughed coldly. You'll have to do better than that, sweetheart. I told you I'm not letting this marriage go without a fight. Sherry folded her arms. You think you can stop it? If you need to fly to the Vatican to have the Pope declare this marriage unbreakable, I'll buy your ticket, Ramona sneered. But I'm not losing my husband to you or that red-headed witch. She refused to consider any option that didn't involve talking to Brad. Sherry sighed later that day. She's ruthless, she told him. You should meet with her. If you refuse, it won't look good in court. 2 days later, Brad sat across from Ramona in Sherry's office. Her eyes were puffy, red-rimmed. Why are you doing this to us? His voice was cold. You did this, Ramona. She exhaled slowly. Okay. I got carried away. I drank too much. I neglected you. I know I hurt you. Brad didn't respond. But we've been together for a decade, she whispered. That has to count for something. His jaw tightened. I love you, Brad, she murmured. You know that. You lied to me, he said. You betrayed me. You never once thought about how I felt. It was always about you, about what you wanted. Her lips trembled. I had cancer. His expression darkened. And? You don't understand what that does to a person, she whispered. After facing something like that, your perspective shifts. I needed to feel alive again. Ramona, I get it, he said. And now, you have all the time in the world to experience life the way you want. I won't stand in your way. You can sleep with whoever you want every night with a room full of strangers, and no one will care. He pushed back his chair and stood up. Her voice cracked. You can't just walk away from me. Brad leaned on the chair, motioning for her to sit back down. You never had cancer, he said. She blinked. What? He raised a hand, cutting off her protest. We had cancer. His voice wavered, but his eyes burned with emotion. I was there every single day, watching you suffer. His tone hardened. Only it was worse for me. You felt the pain, but at least they gave you something for it. I had to watch, helpless, as the woman I loved wasted away. Ramona swallowed, eyes flickering to the floor. There were nights I would have given anything to trade places with you, Brad continued. If I could have taken your place, I would have. But I never left you. His voice softened, but the pain in it was unmistakable. I had to pretend everything was fine so you wouldn't lose hope. But I was dying too, every single day. And when visiting hours ended, I'd go home and break down. I was terrified of losing you. Tears burned at the edges of her eyes. When it was over, I was ready to start living again too, he said. But the person I wanted to share that life with was too busy drinking, too busy with other men. She flinched. And one of us had to work to pay off all those medical bills, he said, his voice cold. So now you have a new body, a new lease on life, and I have nothing but debt. Her fingers curled into her lap. You had all these new priorities, and I wasn't one of them, he continued. You claim to love me. So tell me, Ramona, how do you think it felt knowing you were sleeping with other men? She took in a shaky breath. I'm sure they were all great guys, he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. But where were they when you were lying in a hospital bed, dying? Silence. Cancer didn't eliminate you, he murmured. But it destroyed us. He slid the papers toward her. Sign them, he said. I have nothing left to say. Then, without another word, he walked out. Ramona sat there, staring at the divorce papers, as silent tears streamed down her face. As Brad stepped out of the lawyer's office, Kelly was already there, leaning against her car. She didn't ask how it went. His face told her everything. His shoulders were heavy with exhaustion, his expression hollow. Words wouldn't help right now, so she didn't offer any. When they reached the car, she tossed him the keys. He caught them automatically, a flicker of something resembling a smile crossing his face. He loved this car. Back in its day, the 03 Mustang SVT Cobra had been a monster, built for speed, nicknamed the Terminator. "Take us home," she said with a small smile. He slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel, his fingers tightening around the leather. "The divorce will go through whether she signs or not," Kelly added. Brad stared at the road ahead but didn't start the engine. "Can we just drive for a bit?" Kelly shook her head. "No, we have the rest of our lives for that." She reached over and squeezed his hand. "Right now, you need rest and food." When they pulled into Kelly's driveway, Brad lingered by the car for a moment, reluctant to go inside. He wanted to keep driving, to lose himself in the roar of the engine, to feel something other than the wreckage of his past. Kelly, already inside, didn't wait for him. She walked across the room, shedding her coat and letting it drop to the floor. He followed her, eyes catching the way she moved. Without a glance back, she unbuttoned her blouse and let it slip from her shoulders, her lips curving slightly as she reached the stairs. One heel clattered to the floor, then the other. Halfway up, she slid her tights off, twirling them around her fingers before tossing them aside. At the top of the stairs, she paused, looking over her shoulder, eyes locking with his, a silent challenge. Then with a smirk, she disappeared down the hall. Brad stood frozen. For the first time in weeks, he felt something other than pain. He moved without thinking, collecting the trail of discarded clothes as he climbed the stairs. He didn't know why, he just did. At the landing, she was waiting. Fingers reaching behind her back, she unhooked her bra, letting it slide away effortlessly. His breath caught. "Come get me," she whispered. Then she turned and ran, laughing softly. Brad finally understood the words of a certain funk legend. "Why must I be like that? Why must I chase the cat?" Now it all made sense. He chased her down the hall to her bedroom, where she was already peeling away the last of the barriers between them. She knelt before him, fingers working at his shirt, lips trailing over newly exposed skin. Every inch of distance between them disappeared. Every wall he had built came crashing down. "Kelly, She silenced him with a touch. Where Ramona had been passive, hesitant, Kelly was fire, unapologetic, untamed. She didn't just share herself. She took him, claimed him, and in return, gave him everything. There was no hesitation, no regret, no looking back. That night she made sure he forgot about the past and lived in the moment. Kelly understood betrayal all too well. She had once been married to a man who believed that no matter how beautiful a woman was, she would eventually become dull, just another thing to discard. When she caught him cheating for the third time, she had asked him why. "You always need something fresh." She had walked out and never looked back. For years, she had waited for a man who loved the way Brad had loved. And when she saw Ramona throw it all away, she knew she would never make the same mistake. Ramona's loss was her gain, and she would make sure Brad never doubted what he meant to her. Weeks passed, and still, Ramona refused to sign the divorce papers. She had no intention of letting him go. She hired a private investigator, desperate to find proof that Brad had moved on. If she could prove he was cheating, she could file for divorce on her terms, paint herself as the sufferer, and convince herself they were even. In her mind, this was just another step in their relationship. She had made mistakes, he had taken his revenge, and now they could put it behind them and start fresh. She just hoped he wouldn't take too long to come home, because she wasn't feeling well. No one checked on her anymore. No one fussed over her, doted on her, or made her feel special the way Brad had. But once he came back, everything would go back to the way it was. He would take care of her, hold her, clean up after her, love her the way he always had. He had to. One evening, she finally saw them. Through a restaurant window, she spotted Brad and Kelly. Kelly reached across the table, brushing her fingers over his cheek. He caught her hand, turned it over, and kissed it. Something inside Ramona twisted. This wasn't the plan. Brad wasn't just sleeping with Kelly. Brad was in love with her. A white-hot rage surged through her. She stormed into the restaurant, shoving past tables and knocking over a chair in her fury. "Get your hands off my husband, you cheap hooker!" she shrieked. Kelly didn't flinch. "You threw him away!" Ramona's hands curled into fists. "I never wanted him to leave." Kelly tilted her head. "But you didn't want him enough to stay faithful either. You won't take my husband from me." Kelly leaned in, voice steady. "I already have." Ramona's face contorted with rage. "Like hell you do. First, I'll eliminate you." Brad stood. "Ramona, enough." She turned to him, ready to unleash another tirade. But suddenly the room spun. Her body swayed, balance slipping. Her face paled. "I don't feel right," she whispered. Moments later, she stumbled out of the restaurant. 3 months later, Brad and Kelly were married. Ramona never signed the divorce papers. It didn't matter. The cancer had come back, and this time it wasn't going away. She was admitted to the hospital once more. The doctors did everything they could. The nurses provided the best care possible. But this time there was no one sitting by her bed, no comforting hand to hold. Without Brad's steadfast presence, without the love that had once anchored her, the will to keep fighting slowly faded away. She wrote to him, long, desperate letters filled with regret, filled with pleas for another chance. She begged him to visit, to see her just once. He sent only one response. "Sign the papers and I'll come." She never did. The illness moved quickly, showing no mercy. Within a month, she was gone. Brad and Kelly attended the funeral. When his turn came to speak, Brad stood before the small gathering, his voice calm and composed. He spoke about the woman he had once loved, about the memories they had shared. He did not mention the pain, the betrayal, or the way it had all unraveled. He honored what had been good and left the rest unspoken. At the end of his speech, he turned to the small group of relatives seated before him. "My wife and I have chosen to name our daughter after Ramona," he announced. A quiet murmur rippled through the crowd. Kelly, standing beside him, gently squeezed his hand, but said nothing. That night, as the fire crackled in the hearth, Brad sat in silence, lost in thought. Ramona had always said she had beaten cancer. At one time, he had believed that, together, they had conquered it. But the truth was something else entirely. Ramona hadn't defeated cancer. She had become it. From the moment she left the hospital, she had changed. She had become reckless, volatile, destructive. She had let her suffering consume her until it spread to everything she touched, her marriage, her relationships, her sense of self. And when she couldn't get what she wanted, she had torn herself apart. Brad exhaled, watching the flames flicker. Kelly nestled against him, her hand resting over the small curve of her stomach. Outside, parked beneath the soft glow of the moon, his Mustang gleamed. He smiled faintly. His wife was with him. Their child was on the way. Love, warmth, and peace surrounded him. And for the first time in a long time, Brad knew he had finally found happiness.